Thank you for the click. My name is Luxeley, and today we are going to unleash the beast within. I am talking about BM hunters out there. This is for BM hunters, a little bit of a first impression straight from the BFA beta. Now, keep in mind, this isn't intended by any stretch of anyone's imagination. I do not intend this to be any kind of a guide. What I'm trying to do here is give people an idea where BM hunters stand right here and now on the beta. And I'm breaking things down into different categories: single target damage, AOE damage, crowd control, survivability, which is a mix of both healing and defenses, mobility, and last but not least, utility, which essentially isn't necessarily single target or AOE damage. It all comes down to what is it that you are bringing as a class to a particular group that benefits the entire group that only a few select classes bring. And a big part of utility here is going to be talking about what the pets are bringing to the table, because Blizzard has restored quite a bit hunter utility across the board, survival, MM, and BM, with the addition of passive and active abilities from pets, as well as other abilities that pets bring to the table. And I think BM is the one hunter spec that's going to benefit the most. Now, the way I'm breaking this down, I'm judging things on a scale of 1 through 5. A 1 meaning we can pretty much expect somewhere along the line some kind of buff is going to be had. A 5 meaning somewhere along the line, some kind of a nerf is going to swing the bat and hit it pretty hard. And in the middle, we're talking 3. That's mediocrity, that's average, that's a fair estimation. Let's get right into it. Single target damage. The BM mastery is a copy and paste from Legion. It's all about leveraging the pet damage, pet damage, pet damage. 3 key abilities or traits are gone along with the artifact. Jaws of Thunder, Kill Command had a 24% chance to deal 50% additional nature damage. Titan's Thunder, which I believe had a 1-minute cooldown. All pets deal nature damage every 1 second for 8 seconds. And Hattie, the evil, fracturnal, or identical twin, your choice, doesn't really matter, it's gone. However, Tier 15 offers what you could deem to be a replacement for Hattie, Animal Companion. When you use Call Pet, you summon your first stable pet who obeys kill command. Sound a bit familiar? Unfortunately, Animal Companion is up against Dire Beast, which used to be baseline. Here's what I'm deriving from all this. In Legion, you had both Hattie and Dire Beast. In BFA, it's one or the other, not both. No matter how you slice this, no matter how you look at it, it's a pretty huge nerf. Kill Command and Cobra Shot make a return. Short-term buffs, such as Aspect of the Wild and Bestial Wrath, return as well. Other single-target talents returning in BFA include Chimera Shot, which deals nature damage on a 13-second cooldown, generates 10 focus. Murder of Crows, which is a copy and paste from Legion, deals physical damage and offers a reset if the target dies while under attack. There is a new baseline ability called Barb Shot. It's a very small bleed. It definitely could be buffed up a little bit. It does bleed damage over 8 seconds with 2 charges with an 11-second recharge. Even though the damage is very low, there's some good news here. Barb Shot generates 20 focus and increases pet attack speed by 30%, stacking 3 times. If you pop 2 Barb Shots on a target, the bleed damage will reset but not stack. You will generate 40 focus and gain 60% attack speed for your pet. The passive ability Wild Call, auto crits have a 40% chance to reset the CD of Barb Shot. As you kind of hear this story, you're starting to realize that Barb Shot is acting as the same exact agent Dire Beast did in Legion. Barb Shot also reduces Bestial Wrath's remaining cooldown by 12 seconds, which is pretty huge because this is an ability that can also reset. Other talents that significantly affect damage include Killer Instinct. Kill Command deals 50% increased damage to a target below 35%. Killer Instinct basically replaces Big Game Hunter on Tier 15. Big Game Hunter used to increase the crit of Auto Shot as well as Cobra Shot by 60% on targets north of 80%. That's a trade I'm willing to make. How about other BM hunters out there? You willing to make that trade? The talent Blink Shots is gone. This is an ability that Blizzard really likes, but Blizzard ends up nerfing. Blink Shot dealt 100% increased damage and served as a teleport for your pet. There are some new talents worth a look and, more importantly, a shot, such as Spitting Cobra. It almost seems like something out of a Kung Fu movie. Spitting Cobra, a former Survival talent packs its bags and moves to BM. Spinning Cobra deals nature damage every 2 seconds for 20 seconds on a 90-second CD. And also, I want to point out, while Spinning Cobra is active, you gain 2 focus every second, so that's pretty huge. Scent of Blood. Barb Shot generates 8 additional focus, which is pretty huge because you have 2 charges of Bob Shot, which essentially means 16 additional focus. Venomous Bite. Cobra Shot reduces the CD of Bestial Wrath by 1 second. There's another ability reducing the overall cooldown on Bestial Wrath. And Thrill of the Hunt. Barb Shot increases your crit by 3% for 8 seconds, stacks 3 times. Maximizing your DPS as a BM hunter is really going to come down to managing Bestial Wrath and Aspect of the Wild, as well as the buffs Barbed Shot provides. The Bleed Dot isn't really, like I said, that huge, but it is going to have these resets and stacks, so there is a lot of value there. And Cobra Shot could receive a little bit of a buff, in my opinion, or maybe not be physical damage, maybe be nature damage. Overall, I give BM single target damage a 3.5. AOE damage. Multi-shot Ambi's Cleave. That wonderful tandem returns in BFA. The talent Volley, a toggle ability that essentially increases AoE damage, is no longer with us. In other words, pruned. Your talent choice to boost AoE damage rests on tier 30 with Stampede, which is most definitely the weaker of the 3, and quite honestly, really a single target ability. Barrage, pretty decent, costs 60 focus, deals a fair amount of damage on a 20-second cooldown. And Stomp, which is probably the best of the 3. When you cast Barb Shot, your pet stomps the ground, deals physical damage to all nearby targets. Now here's how the math works. For every barrage you shoot, you can essentially get off 4 barb shots. And barrage costs 60 focus, which means less multi-shots, which means less beast cleaves. One small benefit with regard to AoE damage will be hitting different targets with barb shot and sorting out the bleeds. Because like I said earlier, they don't stack, they just reset. So if you just spread it out amongst targets, you're going to increase your AoE damage a little bit. The talent Scent of Blood and Thrill of the Hunt will help generate more focus and more proc resets. Another AoE damage ability can be found in the PvP talents. It's called Dire Beast Hawk. Summon a hawk to circle the target area, attacking all targets within 10 yards over the next 10 seconds. Cool thing about this, 30-second cooldown. This is something that is really, really good for some of those battlegrounds where players usually tend to be clustered together, such as Arathi Basin, Deepwind Gorge, Eye of the Storm, and of course Battle for Gilneas. I'm not really a huge fan of proc-reliant mechanics. I do believe they have a very good place with single target damage. Those are usually boss fights, those fights usually last longer. But when it comes to AoE, where the fights tend to be shorter and the procs tend to be less, because you're fighting mobs, you're fighting clusters of mobs, this is precisely what BM AoE is, unfortunately. It's very, very proc dependent. That's why I give it a 1.5. But hold the phone. There is a potential saving grace here. The worm family, which is one of the exotic pet families, any of those big worms that you could find out there in the world, offers BM an AoE called Burrow Attack. Deals nature damage over 8 seconds on a very short 15-second cooldown. I used to use this ability quite a bit when I did RBGs just to defend a node because you can't really target the worm and it goes under and it's rather short cooldown, so it was a really great ability. I haven't tested it out because I spent enough time trying to hunt down a spirit beast, and we can't copy and paste our existing tunes onto the BFA beta yet. Believe it or not, still hasn't been active. But assuming the damage is as good as it used to be back in the day in Mr. Pandaria, even in WoD, I'm going to bump up BM AoE damage. I'm going to assume that it's still pretty good. I'm going to bump it up to a solid 3.5, maybe even a 4. Crowd control. Hunter traps provide decent crowd control. By the way, I'm really curious, who's a genius dev over at Blizzard who took away Hunter traps at the start of Legion? Whoever he is, I want to punch him in the face. And I'm not a violent guy, but come on, really? Let's get rid of Hunter traps. That's a great idea. Tar trap, a range 50% snare on a 30-second CD, and freezing trap, a 30-second cooldown, which puts targets on ice, or rather in ice, both return in BFA. BM hunters receive a little bit of an extra gift here with the PvP talents. Explosive trap kind of packs its bags, or at least picks up a summer home over in the BM talents, also available for MM hunters. So you get that wonderful little bit of damage and that knockback Really a lot of fun and kind of useful in a lot of areas if used properly. Concussive shot, a snare with a very short CD, and counter shot and interrupt, return, copy and paste from Legion. The big news with regard to CC, Intimidation. Essentially, a pet stun for 5 seconds on a 1-minute cooldown is now baseline, no longer a talent. The talent Wyvern Sting, which basically was kind of like Ambium on an arrow. Sort of good news, bad news here. Wyvern Sting used to DR with a lot of the wrong things, particularly Freezing Trap. That was problematic. The bad news is it's going to be a lot harder for you to CC 2 targets at once, because it was kind of easy to do with Wyvern Sting and Freezing Trap. The real difficult and confusing talent choice shows up on tier 75, where you have Binding Shot, which is kind of a necessary CC. Born to be Wild and Post Haste both are linked with mobility. It's kind of odd putting a CC against 2 movement buffs here. Just a real tough, unnecessary choice. Blizzard insists on throwing these choices out there. They think it's meaningful. I think it greatly lacks meaning. Various other forms of CC show up within the pet utility, but I'll go further in depth when I talk about pet utility in the utility section. I give BM a 3 with regard to CC. Here's why. Because on paper it looks a lot better than it actually is. Your main CC is Intimidation, and it's locked to your pet. I'm not a big fan of that. It's locked there because it's part of the class fantasy, which Blizzard is in love with, but locking Intimidation to a pet is rather clunky, and you never know how the pet's going to behave. Good players will taunt the pet away, makes it a bit difficult. Not a big deal in PvE, but in PvP it is, and that's why I give it a 3. Survivability. This is where BM Hunters really shine over the other 2 Hunter specs, and that's a huge statement considering the fact the PvP talent Separation Anxiety is gone. This is a talent that Blizzard nerfed into the ground. Initially, it would increase your pet damage by 15% as long as you were further, I believe, than 25 yards away from the pet. And then they basically changed it to increasing your pet's movement speed and damage reduction, which is a huge, huge nerf. And you just had to know the Blizzard devs would trip over themselves to hit the delete button and get rid of this PvP talent. Pet Separation Anxiety really used to be a way that hunters, BM hunters specifically, could hide behind a pillar, have a Coke and a sandwich, and essentially stay out of harm's way, and get rewarded for it quite a bit. Aspect of the Turtle offers a 30% damage reduction on a 3-minute cooldown. The talent Born to be Wild offers a 20% cooldown reduction of Aspect of the Turtle, as well as Aspect of the Cheetah. Exhilaration is your baseline heal, heals you for 30% of your maximum health, and your pet for 100% of its health on a 2-minute cooldown. The talent Natural Mending can reduce the cooldown of Exhilaration by 1 second for every 30 focus spent. BM Hunters can now also choose Camouflage as a talent. This used to be, or actually still is, a survival and MM talent, but now also BM has access to this ability. It's a heal over time and a stealth all in one. And of course, there is the baseline ability Feign Death, which can be good in certain situations. It's a, look, I'm dead, now leave me alone kind of ability. There is a noticeable loss in survivability with the loss of 2 key artifact traits that offered better survivability, quite honestly. Spirit Bond, essentially a kill command heal. Kind of a very small heal, but a consistent and steady one. This loss hits a bit harder if you consider the fact that there was a talent that used to reset kill command, so you're losing that steady heal. Mimi Ron Shell was a trait that gave Aspect of the Turtle a 30% max heal every 3 minutes when you used it. Other things reduced cooldown, and doesn't matter getting into that because you can no longer heal with Aspect of the Turtle. Here are 2 reasons why I think BM Hunters really outshine the other 2 Hunter specs in the survivability category. Spirit Mend, and I hope you guys appreciate the fact that it literally took me 2 hours to hunt down a Spirit Beast. I finally got one in Twilight Highlands, and the reality is it took a while. I could not access Mista Pandaria territory where that Porcupine Spirit Beast is just always sitting there doing nothing because I had to go through the whole scenario. I didn't want to do that, but I wanted to test out the Spirit Beast heal, and it's better than it was in Legion, certainly better than it was in Warlords of Draenor, the fun. It's roughly a 10 to 12% instant heal, and a 6 to 8% heal over time every 30 seconds. That's pretty huge. That separates you from other hunters having that. And all of your BM hunter damage abilities are instant. So BM can constantly be on the run, unlike marksman hunters, and they could stay out of harm's way 24/7, unlike survival hunters, who on occasion are going to have to engage in melee, or at least the majority of the time they're going to have to. There's quite a bit worth mentioning with regard to the PvP talents that enhance your survivability. Roar of Sacrifice protects the target from crit strikes. Interlope acts like a poor man's spell reflect, basically. Dragon Scale, 20% magic dot damage reduction. Survival Tactics kind of acts like a Cloak of Shadows, where basically wipes out all dots and gives you a little bit of 90% plus damage reduction for a second and a half after you get up and no longer pretending you're dead. And Wild Protector, which gives you 10% damage reduction to you and your allies within 10 yards of your pet. Being 100% mobile really pumps up BM survivability, because it's a lot harder to train a moving target, especially when that target possesses up to 3 snares. That's right, 3. Concussive Shot, Tar Trap, and you could also get a snare potentially from several different pets. I give BM survivability a 4.5. Mobility. Aspect of the cheetah returns and increases movement speed by 90% for 3 seconds and then by 30% for another 9 seconds. A talent like Born to Be Wild lowers the cooldown of Aspect of the Cheetah as well as Aspect of the Turtle by 20%, and another talent, Post Haste, provides a 50% speed boost for 4 seconds whenever you use Disengage, also removes snares. Unfortunately, in Blizzard's infinite wisdom, they put Born to Be Wild and Post Haste on the same talent tier. Of course, the reality is Disengage as a baseline ability, even without Post Haste, offers hunters tremendous mobility. The PvP talent Hunting Pack spreads the love of Aspect of the Cheetah, a 90% speed boost to all nearby allies for 3 seconds, which certainly adds utility as well. Everything in the BM Hunter Bat utility belt, as far as damage is concerned, even CC is concerned, it's all instant, which offers huge mobility, greater mobility than MM and Survival. As you know, I said it before, I'll say it again, marksmen have to hard cast their big hit, which is aim shot, and Survival needs to engage at melee range the majority of the time. Not all the time, but most of the time. The old school hunter ability, Master's Call, returns as an on-use ability. Its utility provided by a certain school of pets. More on pet utility in the utility section coming up next. What all this translates to and how it all looks on paper, honestly, it doesn't look like a lot, but it does translate into a distinct advantage even without a PvP talent like Separation Anxiety. You add in the fact that you have 2 baseline snares that are actually going to help your mobility if used properly, such as Tar Trap and Concussive Shot. And if you want a 3rd snare, there are plenty of pets that can offer a 50% snare as well. Overall, I give BM mobility a solid 4.5. Utility. Pet utility comes back with a vengeance in BFA, and I gotta say, I think it's going to benefit BM hunters the most, and we're going to get to why in a few minutes. First, I want to go over what the pet utility is, because every school of pet, whether it's ferocity, tenacity, or cunning, they offer both an on-use ability and a passive ability. This is pretty huge. For example, ferocity has Predator's Thirst, which increases a certain percentage of leech. I don't know what it is yet. I think at first it was around 3%, but now it says 0% on the beta, so Blizzard's changing it. And also there is a on-use ability, Primal Rage, which is essentially Bloodlust or Heroism. Your tenacity pets have something called Endurance Training, which is an 8% increase in your overall health. That's your passive ability, and your on-use ability is Survival of the Fittest, which is a 20% damage reduction. And the Cunning family of pets, or school of pets, offers Pathfinding, which is an 8% speed boost, which is actually pretty huge. That's your passive ability, and your on-use ability is good old Master's Call, which can not only remove snares, but also remove roots, and it will make you immune for 2 seconds to both of those kind of things, which is really, really huge. Now, There is a talent in the last tier, tier 100, called Aspect of the Beast, and this is why BM gets more leverage out of this added utility from the pets. Aspect of the Beast increases your pet damage abilities by 30%, and your passive abilities, those meaning Predator's Thirst, percentage of leech, endurance training, percentage of health, and pathfinding, percentage of speed, it increases those passives by 50%. Now, this 30% increase in pet damage is going to be benefited the most by the Chimera, which is an exotic school of pets, because they have 3 different on-use damage abilities. They have Frost Breath, they have Frost Storm Breath, and they have Bite. I think there's one other pet that offers 3 different on-use damage abilities, but I'm 100% sure Chimera is one of them, plus a slow. It's really, really huge for BM, and I'm pretty excited by it. Now, your pets are also going to offer, or not all of them, but most of them are going to offer various types of other on-use abilities or passive abilities that are going to help your gameplay, such as snares, water walking, mortal wounds. You have access to a battle res, you have access to slow fall, some sort of spell reflect, not as good as a warrior's, but nonetheless, and dispel and heroism. So there's a ton of utility that can benefit a group, whether in PvP or PvE. And it's very obvious that some of the utility, particularly heroism, bloodlust, overlaps into classes like a mage or a shaman, but the reality is all of your utility trickles into other categories and you gain extra benefits, whether it's single target damage, AOE damage, survivability, crowd control, mobility. You have a lot of options, and anytime you have options, you are adding utility to a group. And that's why on a scale of 1 through 5, I give BM Hunter utility a solid 4.5. This is Luxeley saying whatever it is by you, whether it's morning, afternoon, or night. Make it the best you can. Make it epic.